What did you think of his performance, Jack performance, and the whole fight?
Yeah, I mean, not the most exciting title fight you'll ever see, but let me tell you what, complete dominance, and it's depending on what we do next with him and what's going on, this guy's headed toward GOAT talk.
All right, so UFC 322 just wrapped up, and I thought I'd make a video discussing the event, but obviously I'm going to focus on the headliner between Islam Makhachev versus JDM because there's a ton of implications now that Makhachev won. Regardless, I thought the event as a whole started off pretty great up until the last two fights where the action came to a complete halt, and yeah, in this video I'm going to be talking about all this and more. Okay, the main event. Right off the bat, I gotta give credit to Islam for making it look as easy as he did. Honestly, after watching JDM beat Bilal, I really thought that he had what it took to fend off Islam's takedowns, and in hindsight, I feel very stupid for thinking this because this shit was not close at all. Makhachev's game plan wasn't even all that sophisticated. He just broke down Jack's front leg to take away his boxing, and from there the takedowns came easy. This isn't some revolutionary game plan that we've never seen before. This is one of the oldest strategies in the book, and to this day it still works at the highest levels of the game. And for all the talk about a supposed size advantage and how much JDM was working with Craig Jones to counter Islam's best positions, he was still completely helpless in all the grappling exchanges.
To move up and weight and say what you want about Jack and the odds, the odds makers had him a big. I didn't. I thought that fight was going to be much, much tougher for Islam. And Jack's a tough kid and gritty, and he beat Bilal, and Bilal's a nightmare for a lot of people. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was.
I've seen a lot of people talk about the look on Jack's face in between rounds 4 and 5, namely that he looked like he was about to cry, and I gotta agree, I have never seen a champion look so defeated before in the middle of one of their title defenses, and that includes Leon versus Bilal. Like, this is the look of a man who has been physically, mentally, and emotionally broken, and to JDM's credit, he didn't just roll over and give Makhachev a submission, but at the same time, this face is not the face of a man who thinks he can win a fight. And to be fair to Jack, I agree that this guy does in fact have that dog in him. We have seen him dig deep and push through adversity multiple times throughout his UFC career, so the fact that Islam had him looking like this speaks more to Makhachev's pressure than it does JDM's toughness. With all this being said, I do think that the fight was kind of boring. Now, it definitely wasn't nearly as bad as Khamzat Chimaev versus DDP, but I kept finding myself wishing that Islam would turn up the pace a bit more when it became clear that Jack's leg was compromised. I'm happy that we actually got to see some damage be dealt, much unlike Chimaev versus DDP, and I totally understand the importance of Makhachev staying disciplined to a game plan and not overextending himself, but as a fan of the guy, I just wish that he tried to put more of a stamp on his performance. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that wrestlers are killing the sport. As you guys know, my favorite fighter of all time is Georges St-Pierre, and God knows that guy had more than a couple of boring fights. But when I look at fights like Makhachev versus JDM, and especially Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili, I can't help but feel like they bring the excitement of a card to a complete standstill due to how risk-averse their game plans are. And obviously, I can only speak as a fan of the sport, but I do think that there's a difference between fighting strategically and just flat-out stalling. And I know that this probably sounds like I'm just salty that the guy I predicted to win lost, but I promise that's really not the case. I am a huge fan of Islam, and I picked him to win in literally every single fight that he had at lightweight. I'd also like to add that I consider Islam to be an entertaining fighter. I have enjoyed watching him fight in almost all of his previous fights, but this particular performance felt unnecessarily reserved. And you know what? If you're going to call me a casual fan because I don't like watching fighters stall from top position, then fine, I'm a casual. I don't give a fuck, but I grew up watching guys like Cain Velasquez, Luke Rockhold, Matt Hughes, and many more beat the dog shit out of their opponents from top position, so excuse me for having standards. On a positive note, I think that the welterweight division is in the best state that it's been in for many years. What used to be a constipated weight class where the entire 170 roster was a bunch of divas who were protecting their ranks actually has forward momentum now, and not only have there been some great fights recently, but there's even more interesting fights that should happen in the future. Even though Michael Morales has yet to come out of the closet, he has come out of nowhere and killed every person the UFC's put in front of him. I really thought that Sean Brady was going to grind out a decision win this weekend, but Morales came in with another simple yet extremely effective game plan and knocked him out in the first round. I will say that I feel really bad for Sean though. He's one of the few established welterweights who actually believed in leaving no doubts to their claim to a title shot, and frankly he had everything to lose when he took this fight, but he did it anyway and it backfired in his face.
We were waiting for you to get a fight. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, kind of. I went to Canada, watched the title fight, watched them fight, and I assumed I was going to get something like in the summertime, but it didn't come. I did get offered something for August, but that didn't happen. But yeah, I thought I was going to be a little bit more active, not by choice. I wanted to fight more, but it is what it is. Here we are, and I'm ready to go. But yeah, Usman is definitely in there. He's definitely in the talks, but I think he has to win one more at least before you even start considering him for the title shot. So yeah, it's a little crazy. Everyone wants a title shot, but no one wants to fight for it.
And although I don't think that Carlos Prates is ever going to be a champion, he is for sure one of the most exciting guys to watch in the entire UFC right now. It's crazy that just a little over a year ago, Leon Edwards was the welterweight champion, and people were talking about how a fight between him and Islam would look. Fast forward to now, and the guy's on a 3-fight losing streak where he got dominated in 2 of them and he got knocked out cold in the other. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I would like to draw a comparison here because as we know, Leon is a striker. We have seen him go for takedowns in the past, but I think that we can all agree that he prefers to keep the fight standing. However, in spite of that, I think that his fights tend to be boring because he fights so conservatively and doesn't take any risks even in matchups where he's clearly better than his opponent. And just going back to me complaining about the Islam fight being boring, for me it has nothing to do with wrestling because guys like Leon and Sean Strickland damn near put me to sleep when I watch them because they have no sense of urgency when they fight. But when it comes to Edwards in particular, I don't really feel all that bad to see him on his current losing streak because yes, I kind of hate watching him fight, but also because he's one of the worst rank squatters when it comes to the guys of his era. This dude willingly sat on the shelf for months and even years at a time because he didn't want to take any risky fights, and he was even removed from the rankings at one point for how entitled he was acting. I'll be the first one to admit that he's beaten some great fighters and he earned his belt fair and square, but that doesn't change the fact that he's acted like a diva throughout his entire career, so yeah, I'm not sympathetic to see him losing these days.
What are your thoughts on where Leon Edwards goes now from here? 3 losses in a row and they've progressively got worse, so...
Yeah, this was a rough one tonight. I don't know. Leon will go home, take some time, and then we'll get back with him and see what he's thinking, where his head is at, and go from there.
Do you think perhaps his best days are behind him?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean...
That being said, I am very curious on who the UFC is going to give Islam for his first title defense at this new weight class. Given how many new faces have entered the fold, and with Ian Gary versus Bilal Muhammad taking place this Saturday, I think it's a free-for-all on whoever can market themselves the best. I mean, much like lightweight, I don't think that there's anyone that deserves a title shot right now. As good as he is, I doubt that the UFC is going to give Michael Morales a shot at Islam. Carlos Prates just recently lost to Ian Gary earlier this year. Ian Gary lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov not too long ago. I don't even know if Bilal would fight Islam, seeing as they've trained together. And then, of course, we have Islam's bitter ex-girlfriend Ilia Topuria waiting in the wings, which I'd love to see that fight too. And even though Ilia is one of my favorite fighters right now, I don't think that he has what it takes to beat Makhachev, especially at 170.
But if it was up to you, would you rather fight him at 170 to get that 3rd title, or would you be willing to fight him at 55 because that's the division that people say he might be the best at?
It would be much better for me to fight him in 170, and I will beat him and get the 3rd title. That will be the best scenario for me.
Okay, we gotta move on because I want to talk about some of the other fights from this weekend. Guys, I love Valentina Shevchenko. I think that she's at the very least the 2nd greatest female fighter of all time, but I swear to God, her performance against Zhang Weili made me wish I was born without eyes. And I hate the fact that I even need to say this, especially seeing as I already said this for the main event, but the strategy itself is solid, but the lack of any desire to finish the fight or even deal damage is baffling to me. I think that we all might be able to agree here that through a mixture of being undersized and underskilled, Zhang wasn't even close to Shevchenko's level, and I can totally understand why Valentina was cautious on the feet, but where was any semblance of offense when she got her down to the ground? This is the 2nd fight in a row where Shevchenko's game plan was to lay on top of her smaller opponent for 5 rounds. Given it's worked out in both fights, but it really makes for a terrible viewing experience. This girl is arguably, but probably the most skilled female fighter in the history of the world, so it feels more than just a little underwhelming to see her not actually press the action when she gets the fight to the ground. The shame about the main and co-main events is that they completely killed all the momentum from all the previous fights on the card. Like, this was a really good event from the early prelims all the way up until the last 2 fights. BSD had an insane knockout over Beneil Dariush in less than 20 seconds. Bo Nickal's head kick knockout on Rodolfo Vieira was fucking sick, and Ethan Ewing getting the upset win over Malcolm Wellmaker on like 40 hours notice was awesome as well. And I'm sure that the viewing experience was probably way more exciting live in the arena, but as a fan who watched the event while sailing the 7 seas, I just felt like the energy from the event was deflated for the 2 fights at the top of the card. I can't wait to hear the pretentious hardcore fans lecture me on how hard it is to hold down another adult for 5 rounds straight. Like, guys, I know, I wrestled in high school. It's hard to hold down someone for 30 seconds, let alone 25 minutes. But the beauty of wrestling is that when you pin someone on the ground for 2 seconds, then the match is called off because there's no room for advancement, whereas in MMA, if you pin someone in the first 10 seconds of the round, the clock keeps ticking regardless of whether or not you actually engage with offense. Unlike a lot of fans out there, I actually love when fighters mix the martial arts, so I'm never going to complain about wrestlers, but even in wrestling and most other combat sports, there's rules against stalling that are heavily enforced. And much like in the case with fouls, the refs have the ability to tell the fighters not to stall, but they're more so just stern suggestions as opposed to actual commands. demands. I'm conflicted because I really am happy for Islam. I already thought that he had a greater legacy than Khabib prior to this fight, and now it's undeniable. I think he's a great representation of the sport, and he really is on track to becoming one of the greatest of all time, but I just feel a bit let down by his performance. I'm not going to stop being a fan of the guy anytime soon, but as a fan of the guy, I'm hoping that this isn't going to be the new normal moving forward. Anyways, that is the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about UFC 322. Did you enjoy watching Islam versus JDM, and who would you give Islam for his first title fight? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Hey, guess what? This would always taste good, but as double champ, it's even better, huh? Everything tastes better.
No, not many people understand.
No, nobody understands. Me and you all, me and this guy understand. Habib, come, you want to try this with us?
No.
It for us, it tastes
Only
different than
after
for you.
permission. Can I come?
You can come.
Can I
Yes,
come?
now you know you have to ask.
You see how I love you.